As soon as Pope Francis entered the church, everyone was shocked because of the prophecy of one very important saint, Saint Malachy. Now, before you dismiss this as just another prediction, what if I told you that there's a lot of new evidence that this ancient prophecy is playing out right now? Sounds eerie, right? So let's understand what the prophecy is all about, what has been predicted, and how accurate it is. Now, the current Pope of the Catholic Church, who goes by the name Pope Francis, raised quite a stir among prophecy enthusiasts. They are claiming that St. Malachy's vision pointed straight at this year, dubbing this new Pope as Peter the Roman, the final piece of the prophetic puzzle. Pope Francis, originally known as Jorge Maria Bergoglio from Argentina, has raised questions. Despite his chosen name, some believers argue that hidden within his birth name is a connection to Peter. And get this, they're also making a case that he's a true Roman because his family has Italian roots even though he's from Argentina. And this is where it starts to get really interesting. Let's travel back in time to figure out where this prophecy comes from. The prophecy of the popes is like a list of 112 mysterious sayings in Latin that tries to tell who the Catholic popes will be, starting with Celestine II. It showed up in 1595, introduced by a monk named Arnold Wyan. He claimed that it came from visions of Saint Malachy, who was an archbishop in the 12th century. The story goes like this. Malachy supposedly had a vision during a trip to Rome that revealed the names of every pope, 112 in total, from his time until the end of days. Think of it like a series of popes, and we're now reaching the last chapter. He wrote down these visions in mysterious verses, sealed them in Vatican's secret archives, and they remained hidden for centuries. Then along came Arnold Wyan, who uncovered this ancient manuscript just in time for a holy conclave in the 16th century. Of all the ancient prophecies in the Roman Catholic Church, Saint Malachy's prophecy stands out as one of the most discussed subjects that has captivated the minds of many historians. While some people question if his predictions are for real, others find them super interesting and surprisingly accurate. And here is where you might want to pay very close attention. According to him, the 112th Pope would be the last one. His words get intense, predicting a tough time for the Holy Roman Church. His prophecy for this year ominously states, "In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will sit Peter the Roman, who will pasture his sheep through many tribulations. And when these things are finished, the city of 7 hills will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people." The end. So, are we nearing the climax of Saint Malachy's prophecy? Well, it sure appears so. But the million-dollar question is, why is the reign of Pope Francis supposed to end? Now, this is where it gets really shocking. Okay, so let me fill you in. He's the first Jesuit Pope, taking on the role on March 13th, 2013. However, Pope Francis is not without controversy. He holds a unique position as one of the most controversial bishops of Rome in the history of the Roman Catholic Church. Why, you ask? Since he took the throne, he's been dealing with a lot of messy stuff in the church. One big issue was the scandal of clergy sexually abusing children and the church covering it up. Not good. But this scandal came into the spotlight in a big way in 2018 when a report came out about abuse in Pennsylvania. Plus, he had upset some people with his ideas. He wrote a book called Amoris Laetitia, and that got him in hot water. It's about letting people who got married, then divorced, and married again have Holy Communion. But not everyone in the church agrees with that. On August 11th, 2017, a bunch of 40 Catholic clergy and scholars sent a 25-page letter, basically a big complaint to Pope Francis. They accused him of spreading ideas that go against the core beliefs of the church. They said his words in a document called Amoris Laetitia and other stuff he said and did were effectively spreading wrong beliefs about marriage, moral life, and the sacraments. And it didn't stop there. On May 18th, 2018, CNN reported that a bunch of bishops in Chile quit their jobs over a scandal involving sexual abuse. It was a big deal and added to the troubles the church was already facing. Now let's rewind a bit to October 19th, 2013, and you might want to listen closely here. A Catholic bishop named Bernard Fellet, who is more of a traditionalist, gave a warning. He said that Pope Francis was causing the church to decline and might be signaling the start of something really bad, like the age of the Antichrist. That's a pretty serious warning, don't you think? But let's not forget the other side of the coin. People really like Pope Francis because he's nice, he cares about the poor, and he talks to people from different religions. He also cares about the environment, and a lot of people around the world like him. A World Values Survey from February 2014 showed that many people think he brings people together in a good way. But some people in the Catholic Church don't agree with some things he teaches, so there's a bit of disagreement. But hold on, one of the most devastating blows came in the form of an 11-page letter which hit the scene on August 25, 2018. This letter was from Archbishop Carlo Maria Viganò, who used to be the Pope Nuncio to the United States. In this letter, Archbishop Viganò accused Pope Francis of being neglectful in his responsibilities to the Church, specifically concerning a guy named Theodore McCarrick. The accusation was that, despite knowing about sexual abuse allegations against McCarrick, both the Vatican and Pope Francis didn't take proper action. Moreover, the letter didn't hold back. It even called for him to step down from his role as Pope. And here we are, fast forward to today. The drama around Pope Francis doesn't just stay in the Vatican City, it's spilled all over the internet and YouTube. People are buzzing with charges and accusations, and it's becoming increasingly evident. It's not just regular guys on the internet. Priests, bishops, cardinals, and lay scholars are becoming vocal critics of the Pope. The Church is divided, with some people, especially from conservative groups and news outlets like Church Militant and the Remnant TV, strongly disagreeing with Francis and his more modern ideas. Now you might be wondering, do any of these crises and accusations have anything to do with St. Malachy's prophecy? Well, that's an excellent question, and this is where it gets even more shocking. St. Malachy's prophecy, as we've explored, contains cryptic descriptions of the popes. Some guys have matched these descriptions to the popes who came before Pope Francis with surprising accuracy. So when we take a look at the current challenges and controversies, it makes you wonder if Pope Francis could indeed be the last pope as foretold by St. Malachy. So what we conclude is that St. Malachy's predictions are taken very seriously. In fact, back in 1958, just before the conclave that elected Pope John XXIII, Cardinal Spellman of New York went all out. He rented a boat, filled it with sheep, and sailed up and down the Tiber River. Why? To prove a point, that he was the shepherd and sailor, as predicted in the prophecies. Now, let's get back to the prophecy about the 111th Pope, Pope Benedict. It said, Gloria Olivae, which translates to the glory of the olive. Many people argue that this makes St. Malachy's prophecies pretty inaccurate. According to the prophecy, the next and final pope should be Peter Romanus, and here's where it gets really interesting. Some of these prophecies are eerily on the mark. Take Pope Urban VIII, for instance. His prophecy was Lilium et Rosa, which means the lily and the rose. He happens to be from Florence, and guess what's on the arms of Florence? An Irish flower, which looks just like a lily. Then there's Pope John Paul II, whose prophecy was De Labore Solis, meaning of the eclipse of the sun. Now, he was born on May 18th, 1920, right during a solar eclipse. Talk about uncanny. And history also tells us similar, or even worse, crises had perpetually taken place in the Church. The Church's past is filled with scandals, some of which would make your jaw drop. We're talking about bloodshed, mobs running riot, corruption at its worst, sexual misconduct, and even the buying and selling of papal power. It's not a pretty picture. Take, for example, Pope Benedict IX. He was so notorious for his promiscuous behavior that Saint Peter Damian called him a demon from hell in the disguise of a priest. That's a pretty damning assessment, wouldn't you say? Then there's Pope Alexander VI, who openly admitted to having several children with his mistresses. That's a far cry from the image of a pious pope. But wait, there's more. Pope John VII, Pope Stephen VI, Pope Leo V, Pope John VIII, each of them faced their own unique issues during their time as pope. Scandals, power struggles, you name it. But why all the fuss about these prophecies? Some wonder if St. Malachy might have been talking about something much bigger than just the line of popes. Could he have been hinting at an apocalyptic event, like the one described in 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 10? But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens will pass away with a great noise, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. Both the earth and the works that are in it will be burned up. Well, only God knows for sure.